Hello everyone, NecroVMX here, and this is an unusual situation that I have found myself in. This potato cast exists to explain past events as well as future events on this channel. You see, as you guys are probably aware, the Final Fantasy IV Let's Play is now completed, and you may or may not be aware of this, but the next scheduled upload is Sanctus Mortem. Now, due to some real-life events, this has become a much more complex issue than merely uploading the videos and moving on. First off, I want to briefly explain my creative process on YouTube for anyone who just may not be aware of it, or anyone that's interested in it, and anyone who needs a refresher. All of the content that you see on my YouTube channel is recorded well ahead of time, oftentimes months in advance. I do this for a variety of reasons, but the main reason is that doing this allows me to record when I want to, rather than having to stick to a schedule. Sometimes there are days that I want to binge record for hours, and sometimes I'm just not feeling up to it at all. Doing it this way allows me to create a backlog, and I can take a break from working on content pretty much any time that I desire to do so. That being said, the Sanctus Mortem Let's Play was recorded over a period of 8 days in late December of 2018. This is relevant because the developer of the title, Kisareth Studios, ceased to exist 6 months later, in June of 2019. Now you may ask yourself, why is this a problem? That's not an issue. A developer doesn't have to exist for me to play their games, but as you might be aware or might not be aware, I was an employee of Kisareth Studios for 8 years leading up to that point. When looking into dates and whatnot preparing to record this, I found that I had joined Kisareth in June of 2011, making it pretty much exactly 8 years later that the company would soon be gone forever. To give an extremely brief account of my time with the company, I was contacted by Tanya Botello, the CEO of Kisareth Studios, in May of 2011, and a month later I did a video showcasing Chronicles of a Dark Lord on my channel, which got me interested in the game. In the few years after that video, I played through the remainder of it and contacted Tanya more to give her feedback, notes, and ideas, and soon I was hired pretty much a few days after that. I started out as a contributing graphic artist, but soon dipped my toes into nearly every aspect of the company's day-to-day workings and rose through leadership positions to eventually be named as president of the company. That was a role that I stayed in until the company closed. The closing of the company was a decision that I had no say in and was blindsided as everyone else. Now, this may seem odd to you that the president of a company would be unaware that the CEO was going to close it, or that the CEO would close a company while letting literally no one else in the company know about it beforehand, but, well, truth be told, it's just that's the way it happened. Truth is stranger than fiction. As a matter of fact, due to the fact that I was eating dinner at the time that she posted the announcement to social media, I was apparently one of the last people to find out. This happened 6 months after I recorded the Let's Play and had been working very hard behind the scenes on different projects and strategies to grow the company and expand our outreach. But like a lot of the work I did there, in the end it really amounted to not very much at all, and it was time that I now consider to be wasted. Due to being blindsided by this, as well as other interpersonal conflicts between myself and Tanya in the last few years that I was there, the entire thing is a rather large sore spot for me. Not many people know about this, but in the few years leading up to the company's closure, I had considered leaving the company several times, mostly due to a drastic shift in the company's culture that happened after the release of Chronicles of a Dark Lord 2. That game was a true team effort in which everybody contributed, and it turned out really excellently. In the few months after it, there was a lot of talk about moving on to other projects with a similar mindset of cooperation and a shared work experience. However, for a lot of varying reasons that had nothing to do with the game itself, it did not meet the sales expectations that Tanya had. The company fell into a funk of directionless meandering, with way too many projects being announced and started and then abandoned. If I tried to list them all, it would probably be an incomplete list, as I can't even remember every project that was announced, started, and then either put on the back burner or outright canceled. As a matter of fact, there were a lot of projects that were started that weren't even announced. The lack of direction led to a shift in the culture of the company away from cooperation and teamwork and towards compartmentalization. The next big project faltered between being Chronicles of a Dark Lord 3, or a prequel game, or 2 different horror-themed games. People were told what their job was and given something to work towards, only to later find out that the game that they were working on was no longer a priority. This led to disillusionment widespread throughout the company, including myself, due to the fact that people would get super passionate about a project and then be told that the project was no longer a priority and that it no longer mattered. We also re-released the first Chronicles of a Dark Lord, the remake being an inferior product that has too many bugs and glitches due to the quality assurance department basically losing all motivation, and my own personal issues meaning that I couldn't babysit them constantly, with my own naivete in trusting that they would continue to uphold the standards that we had set for ourselves. This was originally meant to be a mobile version of the game, but after the game engine that we used proved to run very poorly on mobile devices, despite being designed for mobile devices, it was ported to Steam instead. So basically the remaster is a mobile game that ran badly on mobile phones. Another inferior product that came out of its in this time was Rhapsody Clash, a product that I voiced my concerns with immediately on the conceptual phase. But Tanya repeatedly said that it would be a way to sell to a more casual market and get our name out there. The fact that the game itself was a bad idea apparently wasn't bad enough, as it was also poorly executed. This was the first time that I felt that I wasn't being listened to, as I was against the entire idea from the get-go. This pattern of not being heard or being heard and disregarded continued onwards as Sanctus Mortem was announced, a game that was 95% Tanya's creation. While I think that Sanctus Mortem is an excellent story and a well-developed title and a solid product, I can say that it absolutely would have been better had it been created under the culture of cooperation and melding of ideas that had been present previously in the company. Everyone was basically stonewalled out of contributing ideas to Sanctus, and the reply was, "I have everything I need already." Although Sanctus Mortem had a really great story and gameplay, almost no assets in the game were created by Kisareth Studios. The few things that were include the title screen that I drew and 4 songs done by Marielle, 3 of which had already been in our previous games. The final song, Stars, was a song that she wrote years ago and just re-recorded. The refusal to allow our artists and musicians to contribute in meaningful ways to the game, as well as not allowing anyone to have a say in the story, led to deepening the culture of compartmentalization, where Tanya expected people to, quote, learn engines, unquote, and become like her, just able to make a game. Tanya never understood that her abilities with the RPG Maker engine were extraordinary and that it wasn't as easy as she made it look. To put this in context, one of our distributors for Chronicles of a Dark Lord 2 actually refused to believe that the game was even made in RPG Maker until they were shown actual proof, whereas Sanctus Mortem is very obviously an RPG Maker game. The closing of the company came as a huge shock, but in retrospect it shouldn't have been, because Tanya had been growing frustrated with everyone being unfocused and unmotivated, but also at the same time failing to realize how she created a culture that led to that and could not conceive of how to fix it. My own influence went from being extremely weighty to almost nothing at all, as the only influence that I could have on Sanctus Mortem was taking over the QA department basically by force and running it to my own standards, which led to the release of a product that I am proud of on a technical level, though on a conceptual level I know that it could have been a masterpiece had the many talented individuals working at the company been allowed to work on it, instead of just being expected to come up with a project on their own and then make it happen also on their own, while also knowing that the projects that they might be working on may not matter because it wasn't whatever Tanya was focused on at the moment, and it was never going to be prioritized and would receive almost no resources, assistance, or support. In the end, if I sound bitter about the entire thing, it's because I am. I harbor a great deal of resentment and anger towards not only the closing of the company, and not only that it happened without my knowledge or input, but the toxic culture of the past few years that led up to it. This is why that I had strongly considered not even uploading my recordings of Sanctus Mortem, but in the end I also felt that it was content that I had created, content that I worked hard on, and content that I was proud of. The main reason for recording it, however, wasn't because I felt that it was something you guys would be looking for or be interested in. It was because I wanted to raise awareness of the game. I wanted to be able to give development notes, and I wanted to use this to grow the company, something that is now impossible. I decided to upload the videos anyway, but prefaced by this video explaining a few things. Since the videos were recorded half a year before Kisareth's closing, a lot of the things that I say in these videos, particularly about the future of the company, are now total bullshit. So consider this a disclaimer regarding the Let's Play, which I do think you should watch, as I think that the story of Sanctus Mortem is very good and it should be experienced. As for any other questions regarding the sequel to Sanctus Mortem, Chronicles of a Dark Lord 3, or any other Kisareth products that had been announced prior to the closing, all I can say is that not only can I not answer these questions, I don't care anymore. I cared about these worlds and these characters quite a lot for a big chunk of time, only to have it ripped away in a poorly thought out business decision that was made unilaterally without my input. If I continued to allow myself to care, it's just too sad for words, and I'd find myself back in the funk that I was in a few months ago. So I hope you enjoy the content, and if you're interested in playing the game, it is still for sale on the Steam store, and probably will remain for sale. Though, of course, keep in mind that it is very unlikely that I'll receive any money from its sales, despite the contracts involved. I'm pretty sure that's all bunk. I'm pretty sure nobody other than Tanya is going to see a dime from this anyway. And to be honest, it's not something that I'm super worried about. I probably should be, but I'm just not. This will finally and definitively cap off a chapter of my life that I don't want to go back to. Something that I've tried extremely hard to move on from, and these uploads will probably be the last time you hear the phrase Kisareth Studios on my channel. To anyone who has unanswered questions or just wants to talk about this, I highly recommend that you join my Discord server if you haven't done so already. That is a place that I feel comfortable in and can be more open. There is a lot, and I do mean a lot of things that I didn't get into in this video because I wanted to avoid things that were deeply personal or that might come off as being mean-spirited. I've spilled a little bit of tea here today, but this is as far as I'm willing to go in a public forum. See you guys soon.